Bop bop ba da da ba da da ba da ba da da. Express route yourself. Bop bop ba da ba da ba da ba da da. Express route yourself. Hey guys, and welcome to the show. I really wish you guys could see some of the stuff that happens before we start recording because it's a lot of fun. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. So today we're going to talk about ExpressRoute. I know we've had some high-level conversations about ExpressRoute before, but I think we're going to kind of dive in a little deeper today.
Yeah, and it's a little bit harder to show because I don't actually have any connectivity here from my home or an office that I can actually demonstrate some of that. But we'll use some imagination to kind of walk through what's possible, and this kind of goes hand in hand with some of the stuff we talked about, and I think the episode 2 where we talked a lot about VPN connectivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't know if it's handy, but do we want to show the people out there today why you don't have internet access?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a great idea.
So it looks like apparently somebody was trying to bury a deer with a backhoe.
I wish I could say that were true. Unfortunately, the local utility company decided to play in the dirt out in my yard and managed to cut through not one, but both of my connections I have going to Comcast. So I definitely could have used some ExpressRoute connectivity here from my home today. So I've got it stitched back together with some shoestrings and bubble gum. So hopefully it'll keep going for the duration of our show.
Yeah, you were saying that you went out there and spliced it together yourself.
Yeah. Thankfully I had some the compression connectors and the crimping tools and whatnot. So the
wire nuts and bubble gum and.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, utility company was impressed. They said they
little gas soldering iron.
Yeah. That probably wouldn't have been a good idea since they were working on the gas line.
Yeah, no, that would be bad.
All right.
Well, that's cool. At least you got internet.
That's right. Yep. So I got myself back up and running. So.
All right. So let's get started. Show us what you got.
Sure. Yeah. So, just take a step back and, we've talked a lot about different ways that you can actually connect into Azure, over public connections, with some of the other episodes that we did where we actually demonstrated, a virtual machine is running, we're remote desktop to it. Those resources have public IP addresses that are readily accessible on the public interwebs. And we also talked about VPN connectivity using an IPsec tunnel between a branch office or remote location into Azure, allowing you to bridge a private network into a private network in Azure. And what this slide is showing is that there's a lot of complexity involved in what actually lives in one of our Azure regions, comprising of many data centers. So we have typically when you think about a customer with a data center, they have a lot of pieces of equipment, maybe Cisco, F5, Palo Alto, different types of networking devices that a customer would actually use to actually connect one of their sites out to their data center or to a colo provider or insert whatever customer solution here. We've taken a different approach, and we have a software-defined network that allows us to achieve very high rates of speed across networks that customers define and configure through the Azure portal or through PowerShell, and whatever mechanism the customers want to use to connect up to us. And we connect all of our regions around the world with a very large optical network that we actually own and operate. We're pretty proud of that network. I think it's to the tune of many millions of literal miles of fiber that we own underneath the ocean and throughout different continents. Yeah, it's pretty staggering how much we built that out. So the benefit of that to our customers is they can leverage that connectivity that we have to be able to rapidly move data between from one Azure region to another. Which leads to what we're going to talk about today, where customers can use higher speed means to actually take advantage of that connectivity by connecting to us through MPLS or multiple provider type services where customers can actually have in essence a dedicated jack or port on a to us with a dedicated speed and an SLA that's centered around it. So when you think about using something like a VPN device, you're reliant on the internet connectivity, the pathways and routing tables that different internet service providers are routing you through, different points of presence and so forth. And with a direct connection from a customer site to us using ExpressRoute, customers can take advantage of speeds up to 10 gigabits to allow them to connect up in a high rate of speed and take advantage of that high-speed interconnect that we have across different Azure regions.
Wow. So almost as fast as physical local area networks.
Yeah, but obviously within...
And as fast as some.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say you can't speed up or can't make the speed of light go any faster. So
right.
Obviously, however far away that connection or that spot where you actually peer with us is, there could be some inherent latency. But yes, we have actually a slide kind of summarizes some of that we actually have 35 locations that customers can actually peer into our network. And we have 3,500 ISPs that we work with, ISPs or colo, exchange providers that we actually work with that you can use to, connect up to us.
So just as an aside, I've worked with several customers now that have ExpressRoute, and I've looked at network traces from a lot of those networks. And the round trip time between their border router and us is actually very, very fast. What normally happens is that if there's a bottleneck, it's because they've got some sort of hardware in front of their border router, or behind their border router, I should say, that's
right.
doing like packet analysis or something along those lines that's slowing us down.
Right. Yeah, some customers actually leverage ExpressRoute connections to be able to backhaul traffic back to, some sort of security appliance to do, like you said, some sort of packet inspection. So there's a lot of creative things you can do once you actually extend our network directly to the customers.
Yeah, it's crazy fast.
Yes. Yep. All right. So actually, let me just build this slide out since looks like the build was a little bit off on it. So, I already highlighted, some of the other mechanisms that you can use to connect, the point-to-site and site-to-site VPN connectivity, internet-based, no SLA. And then you compare and contrast that to, what we're talking about today with ExpressRoute, where there actually is an SLA. And, typically those, if a customer is using a WAN provider or carrier like an AT&T or Verizon, there's actually a very high SLA, the multiple nines, a guarantee for that sort of circuit. And when we bring an ExpressRoute circuit to a customer, it's actually done so with a redundant port. So, I talked about there being up to a 10 gigabit, capacity that's available. If a customer were to procure that, we would actually have two 10 gigabit connections. And that's to allow, for, device failure or, somebody, some unfortunate, utility company digging up in the customer's property as happened.
Yeah, that would never happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a redundant connection to be able to provide customer, guaranteed SLA around that.
That's cool.
So, as we talked about that, that there's the customers actually purchase a particular speed or port speed when they buy ExpressRoute, and we guarantee a level of performance, and in fact, we even allow the customer to burst beyond that port speed because we actually have a redundant connection, and we can take advantage of that for specialized situations or circumstances where the customer's traffic might actually exceed what they purchase for short periods of time.
Wow.
All right. So this is highlighting some of the speeds that are available. So we support from the smallest or lowest speed that we support is 50 megabits. And we support all the way up to 10 gigabits. You can see the increments here that we actually support 50, 100, 200 on up. And a customer wants, so they can start with a 50 megabit connection, and they can always increase that port speed without having to tear down all of the connections. So they can work with a carrier if they're using a WAN provider or if they're using an exchange provider, which we kind of talk about those differences here in a minute, they can always increase that. And we have two ways that customers can use ExpressRoute. So as we talked earlier in some of the other episodes when we talked about networking, any byte of data that leaves our data center is metered, and any bit of traffic that exits one Azure region to another actually is a chargeable block or a chargeable unit that the customer is actually billed for. And ExpressRoute is actually available in two different options. One using the metered approach, which is just like any other network connectivity that they might be using today. From publicly accessing resources in Azure or using VPN, or they can actually have an unmetered connection or an unlimited connection. So much like your cell phone plans today, you would not be billed for any egress traffic leaving any of our Azure regions. And what I advise customers to do in kind of determining which path to take is to take some historical usage data of how much traffic that they actually use in and out of Azure, to actually use that as a barometer to determine whether or not it's worth the investment to actually go with the unmetered path. Because there is kind of a, depending on what level of connectivity the customer is using, there is kind of a break-even point where it makes sense to go with the unlimited path versus paying for bytes of data that leave.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about the different ways that you can connect. Customers can actually connect to us through a colocation provider or cloud exchange provider. And there's actually some benefits to customers in using this sort of option or path. I have some customers I worked with who have like AS400s or some Greenplum or Netezza boxes that they can't easily move into Azure for a variety of reasons. So going with a colo provider allows customers to take those resources that aren't able to run in any cloud provider, not just Azure, I should say, and that are kind of that they have some inhibiting technical factors that preclude them from being able to deploy into any public cloud provider. Customers can deploy those into a colo and connect up via ExpressRoute to that colo, and that's their on-ramp to Azure. But it's also a very high-speed connection that they have to those assets that they put in the colo provider as well. So it's a way for customers to move their data center and retain control of assets that might not be cloud ready, but still be able to take advantage of ExpressRoute as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Customers can also have a point-to-point Ethernet connection. So in both of these providers, we actually have a layer 2 connection that we provide or hand off to the end customer to be able to give them some control over BGP peerings and filters that they have set up or that they advertise from their network into Azure and back. And you compare these paths with using a carrier, which customers can use a carrier such as an AT&T or a Verizon, where they actually punch into a private WAN. They have an MPLS circuit to one of these carriers. And the benefit of going this path is that customers don't have to worry about equipment that they have to maintain. So in the other paths, customers typically have some bit of gear that they put in a cage that we actually cross-connect over to a port on one of our core routers. Whereas going the carrier path, that's a managed connection for the customer. So the customers can still get that high-speed connection, but they don't have to worry about some of the equipment management that might go along with maintaining that connection.
Cool.
All right. So we talked in the past about VPN connectivity. ExpressRoute can actually coexist with that VPN, or I'm sorry, with those VPN connections. So we've increased over the past year our VPN connections. Specifically the gateways that we have native to Azure that allows you to connect up to. So to support up to 1.25 gigabits of throughput with our fastest and most performant VPN gateway tier. So what customers can actually do is maybe they have a smaller branch office. It doesn't really necessitate the need to have a ExpressRoute, connection from 50 megabit to 10 gigabit, but they can just take advantage of the public internet connectivity all the way up to 1.25 gigabits to actually connect up into a network that lives in Azure that they might be using to via ExpressRoute to a larger office location. And customers can also have a site-to-site VPN tunnel as a backup connection. So should some unfortunate circumstance happen, as did today in my yard, customers can actually take advantage of that site-to-site connect or tunnel that exists between their primary site and Azure as a backup connection. So lots of ways that customers can actually.
I'm not laughing with you. I'm laughing at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I should have taken a picture of the mess that I actually had to stitch together in the front yard to make that work. So.
That's so awesome.
All right. So these are all the locations that customers can actually patch into Azure from, and you can see that we have pretty global sprawl, and we have some new regions that are coming on in France as well as in South Africa. But these are locations that customers can actually bring in a connection to us. One benefit that customers can have as well in making use of an add-on feature to ExpressRoute, I'll talk about here in a minute, but I thought it'd be easy to talk about with a map. Let's say the customer had a location in the Netherlands and a location in Miami. Customers can actually have an ExpressRoute connection from the location in the Netherlands to our Amsterdam ExpressRoute connection or ExpressRoute gateway point, as well as one in Miami. And what we can do with an add-on called ExpressRoute Premium is we can actually backhaul traffic over our private fiber between those two locations. So, we're not really a carrier, but I guess, we can act as a carrier in some regards for being able to allow traffic from, Azure assets deployed in the Netherlands to Azure assets deployed in Miami would actually be backhauled over our private connection and not over the public internet.
So it's just creative routing on our part.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So it's an option that a customer has to actually enable on that ExpressRoute connection called ExpressRoute Premium.
That's cool.
And we also have a number of sovereign clouds. I know you do a lot of work with different public sector customers here in the U.S. Yep. We have a number of locations that customers can actually use to be able to get onto our U.S. government cloud. We have another sovereign cloud in Germany that is not actually operated by Microsoft, but we actually, it's kind of a unique relationship we have with a telco there in Germany that it's a standard Azure location, but customers can actually rely on the fact or benefit from the fact that it's actually being managed and monitored or maintained by a local German entity. So that's another path that customers can take. And likewise in China, in mainland China, we have another carrier that we work with there, another company that manages our Azure locations there. And this kind of shows an illustrative example where a customer might have a connection to a zone, which is all intents and purposes an Azure region, in another Azure region, and with that ExpressRoute Premium flag enabled, we can actually backhaul traffic between this customer location and that customer location over our network, as long as both of those locations have ExpressRoute connections into Azure from their respective zones. So it's assuming that using my earlier example, that the zone 2 could be in the Netherlands, the zone 1 could be in Miami, and we kind of bridge the gap across our network.
Cool.
All right. So I talked about that. So the final thing I'm going to talk about is how customers can actually take advantage of some peering options that we have when they're using ExpressRoute. So let's say that a customer has some PaaS services that they want to use in Azure, something like SQL Azure DB or Azure Blob Storage. Both of those services are public services that live in Azure, and to connect and consume those services, customers have to actually go outside of this private network, typically, using their internet connection to actually connect to some of those public services, some of those public, PaaS services we have in Azure. Customers can actually toggle something we have called the Azure public peering that actually allows traffic that's destined for those public services to ride over this ExpressRoute connection. So if a customer wants to have control or assurance or do any sort of monitoring or security inspection of that traffic, to those public services, it's a way that they can actually force that traffic to ride over that circuit as opposed to going outside of that circuit over the public internet. Likewise, they can actually, the blue path is actually where all of the typical traffic for the private networks they set up in Azure would actually traverse. So that would actually be kind of the default behavior of ExpressRoute if this peering wasn't enabled. And we also allow peering to some of our Office 365 services. So this is actually something that does require some pre-authorization and approval from the product team, because it's not typically a recommendation that we or it's not a configuration that we recommend, rather, because Office 365 services are public and they're best used over public internet connections. But for a variety of reasons, the financial institutions and so forth, there might be some customers that need to again have that traffic routed over some sort of monitored and secured link. And there are some exceptions to that rule, and we do allow customers to enable that as well.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So any
one question that I do have. We've just read each other's minds. I thought that we were backing away from doing ExpressRoute to Office 365 implementations.
Yes, we actually do not recommend it. It is something that, for some specialized circumstances that the product team can actually enable that. And the way that that's done is so if a customer actually is using Microsoft peering, like for CRM Online as an example, or Dynamics 365, we don't actually advertise the BGP headers or the traffic filters for Office 365 services. To be able to have that done is actually something the product team and engineering team has to get involved with to actually enable that for specific customer subscriptions. So there are some extenuating circumstances that customers may need to do that. But it is not recommended because, when you think about it, that we're now sending or reliant now on this, potentially throttled connection for, things like Skype for Business, or, Outlook, using Outlook to be able to retrieve your email for Exchange Online and so forth.
Sure. So the reason I'm asking that is because I just want to make sure that anybody watching this understands that if you're a customer and you're just curious about ExpressRoute, or somebody that's just watching this because you want to learn about ExpressRoute, or if you work for Microsoft and you're learning about ExpressRoute, I just kind of wanted to mention that because when you think of ExpressRoute, I really want you to be focused on thinking about Azure.
Right. That's exactly right. That would be the best and most beneficial use case. It just happens that a lot of our Azure data centers also host Office 365, so there's some network things that we could do if it's necessary for extenuating circumstances, but it's not recommended.
Okay, great.
All right. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, it's kind of a boring session from a demo standpoint because I don't have anything really cool to show off. But hopefully it's a good walkthrough of kind of how things work and what options exist.
Yeah, no, actually, it was far from boring. I really appreciate you doing this. And we got to tell the story of you splicing together your own internet.
Exactly. Yeah, I should go out and take a picture of it to put at the end of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to do that, we'll certainly display it.
Okay.
If it's not buried by now.
No, it's not buried. It's all cobbled together. So okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, man, thank you so much for doing this for us again. I love having you as a guest. You're always informative, and this is always, you make for a great show. So thank you again for doing.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's it. Now there's everything that you needed to know about ExpressRoute. Again, thanks for watching, and that's your Taste of Premiere.